The Ice Queen herself, MEI, is one of the strongest characters in Overwatch right now. On top of this, MEI is not very mechanically demanding. For those of you who want to put some time into learning her, a vast amount of SR is waiting for you. In this MEI Ultimate Guide, we're going to be breaking down MEI fundamentals so you can get caught up to speed fast. Then we're going to be going over top 5 tips and mistakes players make on MEI so you can separate yourself from the DPS around you and rank up easily. Let's jump right into it, shall we? Do you want in-depth guides telling you everything you need to know to improve? Then come give our website a shot. GameLeap.com has hundreds of guides over every character in the game to ensure that you're prepared for any meta. Every single guide is made by Grandmaster players, so you get the absolute best tips and strategies out there, all in the same spot. So what are you waiting for? Come check us out in the links down below. MEI is a utility-based DPS that can make key plays and get picks, securing team fights. While her raw damage is not high, she can split off teams with her wall to enable 6v3 that are easy fights to win. On top of this, she's really hard to push and punish because of her ice block that not only protects her from damage, but heals her as well. Let's jump into things that you can do on MEI to hard carry. Firstly, we need to break down Ice Wall and why it's just so powerful. Not only does it physically stop enemies, but it blocks line of sight as well. Splitting an enemy away from heals and peel can allow you to focus them easily as a team. This makes choke points like Hanamura first defense really problematic for enemies that want to push through when you're playing MEI. While they want to get through the choke as fast as possible to avoid spam damage, they are afraid of getting walled off by MEI, thus splitting their team. Having a DPS that has high burst damage as a partner for MEI can be the best duo imaginable. That way, any target that MEI freezes or blocks off is easily focused down and killed before the enemy can regroup and the wall comes down. Something important to keep in mind is that wall can also be used to stop even solo targets from retreating. Characters like Mora and Reaper will often use Fade to run from a MEI who is trying to freeze them. However, even Fade cannot phase through MEI wall because it counts as a physical structure. So they may think that they can use those abilities to run away, but you could just trap them and kill them easily. Next, we need to break down her Ice Block ability and why you are more than likely using it incorrectly. Many people use Ice Block to protect themselves and heal themselves completely up. The problem with sitting in Ice Block for extended periods of time is the enemy team can just reload, get their cooldowns back, and wait for you to leave your Ice Block. The overall best way to use Ice Block in general, especially against DPS or support matchups, is to use it as a juke ability. Ice blocking to dodge a flashbang or sleep dart can mean an instant de-ice block plus freeze and headshot on the enemy. It doesn't matter if you don't fully heal if you win the matchup in the end. You basically just use Ice Block to bait out key abilities and win the matchup. You can really mind games the enemy opponent because you could pop out of your Ice Block anytime, and at only 2.5 seconds to freeze someone, they have little time to react until they are frozen and you've won their 1v1. This is especially abusable if the enemy team turn to focus on something else while you're in Ice Block. You could sit in your Ice Block and watch them to make a mistake, pop out, and punish them instantly. Both of these key abilities together make MEI an insane dueler that can win fights against tanks, DPS, and supports. Even more than that, MEI's wall can completely dictate fights and make pushing through choke points incredibly difficult for a team altogether. Lastly, we need to cover MEI's ultimate. One of the strongest ultimates in the game, MEI's ult can completely dominate a whole team fight by itself. The fear is using it on enemies who can easily get out of the ult, so timing is the most important thing. Using it while the enemy team has already used abilities like Dash or Lucio Speed Boost can ensure your enemies don't easily get away. On top of that, trying to bait an enemy upon their engage or disengage can have the enemy running right into your snow trap. You can ice wall their exit points so that the enemy is stopped right before they leave. Often they will not have the time to redirect and still escape without being frozen. Because of its area effect, it's even more effective on contested hotspots like Koth or Payload. In overtime, the enemy team is in a catch-22 where they must contest the objective to stay in the game, but they do not want to get frozen and become easy popsicle targets for you and your team. Now let's break down the top 5 tips and mistakes that many MEI players make that really hold them back from hard carrying and getting that sweet free SR. Let's jump right into it with tip number 1. Well, you don't need to be insane at using alternate fire, your icicle, to get insane value on MEI. Practicing hitting them in modes like Triad Free For All can help you learn and practice skill shots against hard to hit opponents. Tracers, Genjis, Widowmakers. Practicing how to hit icicles and headshots against really hard to hit opponents can make it far easier for you to pull them out in your games and get even more value out of the character. This is really important because the better you are at icicle, the more things you can contest that typically counter you. Expert MEIs can threaten both tracers because they can one-shot them and Pharahs that are even flying through the air. And the more characters you can test, the harder it will be to shut you down because the enemy team won't know what to swap to actually contest you. If the enemy team swaps to a Pharah and you easily 2-tap her out of the sky, the enemy Pharah is not going to know exactly what to do to shut you down. Moving along to the next tip, this one is try to be hyper vocal on MEI, especially when you are making a wall play. With MEI in particular, being vocal and really trying to call for follow-up from your team is one of the most important things you can do. Unless your team follows up with you, it can be really hard to finish up picks that you walled off with MEI. If you wall off 3 players from the enemy team, it should be 3 free kills for you and your team by pushing up onto them. However, if you're the only one that pushes up, you might even just die and feed without getting any picks at all. This is why being hyper vocal on MEI is premium and is one of the most important things you could do while playing MEI. However, you could do one step better. This is why duoing with a teammate you trust is one of the most important things you can do on MEI. A tank player that can dictate the engagements can be one of the best things you can duo with while playing MEI, because they will always push up on your walls and be that consistent pressure that helps the team along to focus your walls and the picks that you wall off down. Besides that, as I mentioned before, a high burst damage DPS such as something like Reaper can be one of the best things that you could duo with, because you could easily focus down any tanks that you wall off. Moving along to tip number 3, you need to really keep track of things that shut you down and make sure to play in a range that is advantageous for you. For example, do not challenge a Widow or a Hanzo from far ranges away. You could easily isolate their line of sight with your wall and try to close the distance. Even if you can hit icicles, the risk is simply not worth the reward. If you die without getting value out of your high impact abilities such as wall or ice block on MEI, that's going to be really problematic going down the road. If you're playing MEI on defense because there's a really strong abusable choke point and you get killed instantly, not only did you not get the immense value that you could have out of that point, you didn't build up any ultimate charge to stop the snowball. Now on the second point of a 2CP map, you might not be able to get the value out of wall needed to stop a snowball, and you will not have ultimate because you died extremely early challenging something that can kill you way outside your range. You didn't get any value out of your abilities and you fed, so you can't stop the snowball, and essentially you're throwing the game. Keep this in mind. Do not take challenges that you don't have to, and look to find value in your wall first, and make sure that you don't die without building some of that precious ult charge. The tip number 4 that you need to know is repeat the same actions when you can, but understand that the enemy will try to punish / debate you. It might feel really good to consistently wall off the enemy tanks over and over again and get some free kills off of it. While the enemy team might make the same mistake a couple of times, understand that after shutting down the enemy's push over and over again, the enemy is going to try really hard to either punish you specifically or debate you. They're going to feel the pressure that you emit, and they're going to do everything they can to stop your wall value. Getting a wall over and over again can definitely win you the team fight, but the enemy team will really try to stop you and shut you down once you get that insane value. Keep this in mind. The enemy team will often try to debate you into using the wall and then making a sizable push themselves. Depending on the character that walks through, do not wall and really understand exactly what characters are going through. If the enemy diva walks through the choke, often a wall will get no value because the enemy diva will just fly back over to her team. Now in contrast to that, a Ryan has no way to regroup with his team if you wall him off. Understanding the difference between characters that you can actually successfully wall off and characters you can't can be one of the ways where it becomes really hard to actually trick you into wasting your wall. On top of that, while waiting to put up a wall, try not to stand completely still and be hyper aware of the sounds that you hear. Let's say you're waiting to wall off Hanamor defense, a Hanzo just wall climbs over the wall and headshots you because you're waiting to wall off their team. This can be a way that you get instantly killed and punished because you're not really paying attention to your surroundings. Don't get so tunnel visioned on creating a wall that it gives the enemy team an opportunity to actually punish you or shut you down. And for the last tip, tip number 5, this might be the most important tip on the entire list. So keep this in mind. You really need to pay attention about how your wall affects other people on your team, and make sure you're ready to drop the wall at a moment's notice. Anytime any other player on your team says drop wall, you need to be ready to drop wall instantly. You do not know what your teammates are going through or what their specific POV is, but you need to understand that if they want you to drop the wall, there's a specific reason for it. Wall can trap your teammates, cut off healing, and completely mess up game-winning ultimates. So don't tunnel vision on your own plays and mess up your teammates. I'm sure you've seen many scenarios where a MEI will not put her wall down in time and you'll get staggered, killed, or punished because of something that your own MEI does. Do not be this MEI. Be the MEI that really props up your team, not the MEI that actually punishes your team. And on top of this, really keep track about how your wall affects your teammates. There have been many ultimates of mine that have actually been shut down by my own MEI, and there have been many ults by my enemies that have been shut down by their MEI. High Noon, Tactical Visor, many other ultimates like Grab, they can easily get shut down by a MEI player who's not paying attention. As MEI, it's your job to get insane value out of your wall, but it's also your job to make sure that you do not prevent some of the value that your teammates are getting by using your wall irresponsibly. Anyways, I hope this MEI ultimate guide has laid out the fundamentals to get you well on your way to mastering MEI and getting that sweet SR. If there's any guides or content that you really want, please let me know in the comments down below. I'm Coach Mills, and until next time. Do you want to develop yourself as a player whose skill is not only adaptable, but transcends multiple metas? Don't worry, we got you covered. GameLeap.com is the only place where you'll find skills that work you from the ground up so that you can have the solid fundamental that can transition through any meta that you can come across. Not only that, but we have hundreds of videos that stem from in-depth guides to tips and tricks that can help you be prepared to dominate your ranked environment and get that sweet SR. We're so confident that our product will help you that we offer a 10-day money-back guarantee. Come check us out risk-free in the links down below.